And good morning. We are live on YouTube, but we're going to bring in our friends on Facebook. We're going to go to Scott Kennedy Sports, and we're going to add in Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons, which did break the 10,000 liked threshold this week. So that is good. And welcome in, everyone. I'm Scott Kennedy. That is Nick Kendall. We are Forging the Falcons. And as you know, I am from Atlanta. Nick is from Seattle. So we are coast to coast, ready to talk NFL football. And we will hit on a variety of topics today that involve the Falcons and other teams across the NFL. First off, Nick, how are you as you take a nice big chug of Java?
I'm doing pretty well. It's already hump day, which feels nice, but I am pretty exhausted. I was still recovering from this weekend, and yesterday was pretty much chaos at work, just busy. So doing well, excited to talk some football, and I consider this even though this is work, this is relaxing. So I can breathe and kick my feet back and enjoy some football.
Yeah, I've told you before, this is like therapy to me. Sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're working out or exercising, for some reason it's really hard to do the stuff that makes you feel good, and it's really easy to do the stuff that makes you feel like crap. It just
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. You're like, man, I don't want to go work out. I don't want to go work out. And then when you're there, you're like, man, I'm so glad I'm here. So I am glad I'm here. And as people start coming in from the various platforms, be sure to say hello and hit those like, share buttons. Let other people know that we are here. It's also, Nick, a day that's almost, in essence, like a New Year's Day
Yeah.
for the football season. I almost feel like this is a calendar switch for the true beginning of 2022, because this is a day where the rubber hits the road on almost your, not final, obviously, roster cuts, but your big money moves can still be made now, or can start being made now with the guys that you have some dead caps and some salaries that you're going to move on. And one of those guys that's still left on the board right now for the Atlanta Falcons is Deion Jones, linebacker, a very productive Pro Bowler coming out. He's really close to becoming like the all-time leader in pick sixes from the linebacker position. So he's played really well, got a huge contract, didn't live up to it last year. And frankly, Nick, at that price, it'd be hard for him to live up to it, period, based on the linebacker position being devalued and his cap numbers in the 20s, but not even close. And
Yeah.
that poses a little bit of a problem moving forward.
Yeah, he is kind of on the downward part. He's 28, which is not crazy for a linebacker, but last year did not play very well. Now, part of that could be the trend in today's game where they're looking for basketball players at
Mhm.
the linebacker position, lengthy guys with some size, because if you're playing less guys in the box, that means your linebackers are going to have to sort through more trash and, uh, be able to influence larger areas. And while Deion Jones is a good athlete, he's a little bit small for the position, which can be an issue unless you have a very good defensive line in front of you.
Yeah,
So,
you mentioned scheme, Nick, and I always felt like the 3-4, you typically needed to be bigger at the linebacker position, especially at the inside. You are funneling everything to those linebackers. You know, that we've mentioned before that the 3-4 interior lineman, whether it's nose guard or one of the ends, it's a it's a son of a gun position. It's just tough. Your job is to stand in there and just eat blockers, and linebackers get all the glory, whether it's your two edge guys or your two inside guys. They're the ones that are supposed to get all the glory. It also means you need to be not just fast, but big, be able to hold up against the
yeah.
run. Usually those guys are 240 pounds. Deion Jones has played in the neighborhood of 215 for a lot of his career. And Foye Oluokun was in that range too. So they were definitely undersized. And is there still a spot though, for Jones in this defense or somewhere else?
The way his contract is set up, I do still think it would be surprising if he is not an Atlanta Falcon this year. And also, we have the just recent information of him having surgery,
Mhm.
which kind of complicates things as well. But his contract, the post June 1st release of saving only $1 million, that's probably not going to happen. Now, if they can get somebody to trade for him, which with his contract, I don't know how likely that is, but saving almost 11 million in that case, then we're talking. But with the injury, with the amount of money that another team's gonna have to take on at this point in the offseason, just does not seem super likely. But obviously things can happen.
Yeah, and I think it would be partials, right?
Yeah.
So I looked up, numbers at a $13 million guaranteed salary this year would still make him the second highest paid inside linebacker in the league.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be that range, but what can you get if you trade him? Because you're basically going to be buying a draft pick back. If you're able to get something out of it, you're going to say, okay, pick up $5 million of his contract. We'll end up paying the other 8 and throw us a 6th rounder or something along those lines. Before we move on any farther, I want to say hello to some folks starting to pop in here. Mark Schrader, hope things are going well in Texas, and I hope your wife is feeling better. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. I know she was struggling with some back pain, which can be a real pain. And I hope y'all are doing better, getting some sleep, getting some rest, and on the mend. And Joe Cannon coming in said, "Good morning, fellas. What's the move on Deion Jones?" That's what we're going to get into. What is the move? There's so many options there. I think no matter what, he'll never see a penny of his contract for next year. Basically, it's already been paid out. He's got a 0 guaranteed salary next year. So this is the last year of his contract. Now, what are they going to do with it? That's what we want to get into a little bit. Albert Knopper says, "Good morning, Scott and Nick." Good morning, Albert. Welcome in. Appreciate you being here. And Perry West saying, "Good morning, guys." Well, good morning, Perry. Glad you were here. So the options, Joe, talking about the move on Deion Jones, is now that June 1st is over, if you cut him, you can split that dead cap number across 2022 and 2023. You don't have to. It actually costs you $4 million in salary cap room this year if you take it all this year. But Nick, despite what they may say, and despite Falcons fans, believing that this is a 10-win team, that would put $80 million of dead cap money on this team. 80 million. That's 40% of the team. For us college football fans out there, that's like going out instead of playing with 85 scholarships. It's like going out there with 55. That's almost the death penalty.
Yeah.
We would refer to that as being hammered. So can you imagine going out there with $80 million that you're not allowed to put on the field? I mean, $10 million players across the front of this team. How big of a difference would that make to this team, for God's sake? So I don't know. If they're going to do it, I just assume they bit the bullet, ripped the Band-Aid off. They're taking on Matt Ryan's dead cap hit this year. Man, if you're going to do it, just eat it all now. That said, though, it will only be 5 next year. That is like pennies compared to what they're doing this year.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a year ago that the Falcons were a team that were pretty devoid of talent needed to compete and in a pretty poor cap situation. So best scenario, and in our opinion, at least in my opinion, I don't want to speak for you, was to rip the Band-Aid off and just get it all over with as soon as you can. Have one bad season, bounce off the floor hard, and then hopefully spring yourself forward. Because obviously, with the harder you bounce off the bottom, hopefully the harder you bounce back up. So that's what they seem like they are doing. For the most part, Deion Jones' contract's still here. Grady Jarrett's still here as well. Obviously, they retained them. You can't get rid of everybody. It's not Madden where you can only go with undrafted free agents and tank the season. There's locker room and cultural ramifications as well. But Deion Jones, on the whole, I agree with you, would probably be best to move on from him if you can clear the cap space, just so that way you're that much healthier next season. You have another young player that can get out there and play as well. But maybe you want Deion Jones there. I mean, we talked about it for a second.
Nick, that's the thing. I want to interrupt you on this real quick because Jeff Schultz, who's a longtime Atlanta sports writer, was a columnist who kind of made his name for himself with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, not afraid to stir the pot a little bit. I'm not sure where he's from, but he didn't strike me as your typical polite Southerner as he was coming in. But he has come out and he wrote at The Athletic now that if Deion Jones, I'm paraphrasing here, if Deion Jones's locker room presence was more to speak of, he might be worth keeping around. But that is even considered a negative. That's a bold statement to come out and say something like that Deion isn't even a player, isn't even a veteran that you might necessarily want to have around because he's not a good example for your young players. Whew, shots fired.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep an eye on. Now, the move on this, Joe, is if you can get anything in return, if you can get somebody to pick up a couple $1 million off of that salary, that's the move. can he be traded? The problem is, the question I have, Joe, and the question we have right now is, he's coming off such a poor season. He's coming off a shoulder injury that's going to keep him out of off-season camps. Is what can you get for him, if anything? Or are people going to sit around and say, hey, you cut him and I'll offer him $3 million rather than giving up a draft pick, even a 6th rounder and $3 million? I can sit back and get him for nothing. The difference is, if I trade and I do want him on the team, then I basically have exclusive negotiating ability.
Yeah, his contract is just hard to swallow. I mean, you're taking on what? The base salary here, $9 million, $2 million, $5 million.
You would never get all of it.
Yeah.
The Falcons would have to agree to pay part of it, just flat out. It would be a deal like the Denver Broncos saw with Teddy Bridgewater last year, where the Panthers ate 75% of his contract, and the Broncos got him for a 6th and $4 million. That was a friggin' bargain for a mid-level starting quarterback. It was a bargain. So can you get a former Pro Bowler linebacker who's still got tools, who still should be in his prime, for a 6th rounder and $4 million? That'd be a pretty good deal. Be a low risk proposition. And the Falcons sold really, really low on Matt Ryan. They're going to be forced to sell low on Deion Jones based on his crap season last year and his awful contract.
Yeah, this is. Do you think there's a chance that he can end up in Dallas, back with Quinn? There's obviously a fit there. Quinn knows him. They could use somebody like Deion Jones next to Micah Parsons, who is a height, weight, speed kind of freak. That's a one that intrigues me a tad. But obviously, you'll have to eat a good bit of the contract still just to get a pick back. But maybe something to think about.
If you get anything in return, that's the thing. It's like, that's how bad this contract is. 4 years, $90 million, and then it's being restructured. His cap hit is outrageous. And, you're wondering if you can get $5 million back for a guy that it's taken up 24 on your cap. That's how bad this contract is.
Yeah.
And now that it's June 1st, it could be a little better. And again, if you were to just flat out cut him, it wouldn't save you. It'd save you $1 million this year, but it'd save you 13 next year. You'd get 13 back in salary cap room. Well, hell, that's 2 linebackers. That's 2 inside linebackers. Good inside linebackers on the free agent market. Keith Robbins coming in on Facebook saying, good morning. I don't see any likes on my Facebook streams yet. I'm going to have to go in and get it started. So Ray, Albert, Joe, y'all come in. Ray, welcome in, Ray. Appreciate you being here. Been with us from the beginning when we started doing the show, and always has great things to say. Y'all hit that like and share button on Facebook and bring in some more Falcons fans. Ray says, what's up, guys? There we go. The call to action. They're rolling in now. What's up is, it's just more difficulty right now. Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith are building this team. I don't even say with one arm tied behind their back, because it feels like more than that. It's like both arms, like they're handcuffed trying to run a race right now. And it's going to be so liberating when the shackles come off in 2023 and these guys are coming out firing, and we could see what they do. When you learn how to bargain shop and scout and have to work harder than everybody else, and then you get some money, I try and trust that they're not just going to go crazy. It's like, oh, we're going to overspend. Do what the Jaguars did. The Jaguars spent to spend. But you can get, again, mentioned $80 million that might not be on the field this year in dead cap money. Shoot, you give me 8 guys at $10 million a piece. Good Lord, that would be amazing. Doesn't quite work that way, but you know what I'm saying here. Even if I go 20 guys at $5 million a piece, for God's sakes, that's reworking this roster. Lorenzo Carter was your big ticket free agent. He was $4.5 million or something. Casey Hayward going to help this team a lot. He wasn't $5 million. Quit shopping in the old and bargain bin and actually go get some value and some new players. It's going to be a lot of fun, but right now it's painful. It is.
Yep. Yeah, and it'll probably be a rough year this year, and just is what it is. You never know. Also, this could be a team that really comes together. People are counting us out. They're consistently ranked a bottom 5 team in football right now in these power rankings, and kind of an afterthought. But that's not the worst place in the world to be. The worst place in the world, to be honest to God, would be, let's say the Falcons finish with 6 wins this year and they're picking 12th again. And then you're like, okay, well, we're kind of in there. Maybe we should spend big time next year. And then you kind of just stick yourself in mediocrity for a long time with a middling draft pick, and maybe Desmond Ridder is just okay. He's Drew Lock. He's like, okay, well, we're rolling the dice on a guy who's on a rookie contract that maybe is not the dude, but we are not in range to pick a dude. So that's the worst place they can be.
Yep.
Marlon coming in here saying, "Morning, guys. Morning to you, Marlon. Hope you're doing well."
A lot of
And looks like
baseball there with the Jays and the Tigers. Which one is that? Is that you on the left with the Tiger shirt and your dad, or is it vice versa? You'll have to let us know.
Yeah. Chris Walker also always coming in and supporting the show, saying, "Morning, guys. Morning to you, Chris. Hopefully you're doing well." Phil, morning, guys. Hope everyone had a good Memorial Day weekend too. Hopefully you had better weather than I did out here in the Pacific Northwest.
It was pretty nice here in Georgia. For those of y'all joining us here in Metro Atlanta, the weather was pretty gorgeous. It got a little warm, but for end of May, it was gorgeous here. We spent a lot of time outside. Hopefully, some people got some lake time in or some outdoors, and it was pretty nice. And as Keith says, the fun will start next year.
Yeah, fun can kind of start this year, though. I mean, you have a lot of young players. You should be excited about, the up and coming youth of Drake London and Kyle Pitts together. A lot of good young edge rushers as well with the Malone and Ebiketie. AJ Terrell was just recently named one of the top 10 under 25 players in the NFL. So fun can start now. It's just the results might not be there yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to see. You want to see some of these young players, Keith, take a. Last year was tough. Really, the only rookie that flashed was Kyle Pitts. The other ones, Richie Grant didn't get out there as much as we would have liked. Jalen Mayfield was out there more than we would have liked. A couple of the guys, Ogundeji and Graham, they played probably more than they should have, so they were there, but it wasn't. I want to see them out there in better situations. As far as the edge rushers are going to be needed for sure. But rushing the passer should be a little bit easier. And if they get one sack, they beat the starting edge rusher from last year, so that was an improvement. So we will. There can be a lot of good things, even if the record doesn't reflect it. I think the record will take a step back. But I think you will see what you want to see is development from the young players and a foundation moving forward with another high pick next year and plenty of money to spend building forward.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be a lot of fun to see, and I'm excited too. So you kind of took me back here about the Deion Jones quote. It was a little bit interesting about him not being as much of a leader. I thought maybe there was something there about him kind of showing Troy Anderson the ropes, given Troy Anderson's pretty new to the linebacker position, a rookie coming in, a high draft pick, but almost sounded like Schultz, I think is the name that you mentioned there.
It's Jeff Schultz, yep.
Jeff Schultz, not Jordan Schultz, said that he might even be detrimental, if maybe no effect at all, but that's concerning and shocking. So that's something you got to think about as well, and that's not what you want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. You want to get your way out of Atlanta. Okay, well, do it the right way. And you're going to have to be willing to take a pay cut, which he probably won't be.
And do you think there's anything to the timing of Deion Jones's injury/surgery?
Well, I didn't see anything with a date. The thing that was announced was Arthur Smith saying at the first time, and real quick, FC Donnelly says, how many draft picks do you have for 2023? It's pretty standard. I think there's an extra 7th in there, but basically it's just 1 down the board. So 7. 7, maybe 8, but nothing, no extra high picks right now. Appreciate the question. He basically said that he had something cleaned up from the off season. He didn't say he had it this week that I saw. So it may have been lingering. When I listened to him in context, it didn't sound like it was done just before camp. It sounded like it had been done, and he was not going to push it during OTAs for the voluntary camp, but didn't seem any big reason for concern. So
yeah,
but it just hadn't been announced that he had done something like that.
Yeah.
So we will see. Coming down the line here a little bit, Marlon says, "Yep, that's me and my brother." All right, couple of baseball fans. It's the pastime here. It's a national pastime, so it is baseball season. Ray says we should get DK next year. DK Metcalf. That'd be interesting. You'd certainly be loaded at wide receiver then. How about your targets of Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and DK Metcalf? Okay.
Talk about some size.
That would be a Denver Broncos way of going about things, where you'd have plenty of targets, and then maybe if I don't get my quarterback in the draft, I can entice a good free agent quarterback or acquire one in a trade because of, hey, you want to throw to these guys? Yeah, I do.
God.
Yeah. So that would be great. Marlon says he is from Atlanta. Oh, okay, good. And then Chris coming in with a question says, how do you think the Falcons finish in their division this upcoming season? Last, maybe it depends with the Panthers. I think I had them splitting with the Panthers, but 1-5. 0-2 to the Bucks, 0-2 to the Saints, split with the Panthers, 1-5. I can't remember if I had 2-15 or 3-14, but it was. I just don't see a lot of wins on this. The problem with this schedule is the winnable games are road games, and not just road games. Seattle, away from, long ways away. Those are the tough teams, and all the teams that you'd hope some of those the beatable teams, beatable. Everybody's beatable. I know. The beatable teams, the ones that are in the bottom third of the power rankings, you'd have a home game with those, but you don't. You have all those on the road, and then you've got all the tough teams at home. And frankly, some of those tough teams, and I think the Steelers are on the schedule, the Ravens, etc. The Steelers play a home game here. I've been to a Falcons Steelers game, and it's not going to be any better in the near future with the attendance, and it'll be 60% Steelers fans. So I think it's going to be. My prediction was pretty poor. Hopefully it ends up being a poor prediction, but I think I had the Falcons at best 3-14 next year.
Yeah, they're going to be in a battle with the Carolina Panthers for last place in the AFC South. I don't think, even though you have questions about the Saints moving on, or Teron Armstead's gone, how good is Jameis Winston? I still think their defense is going to be very good. Dennis Allen's been one of the better defensive minds of the last 5 years, and obviously the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are top 5 team in football. So they just got Akeem Hicks yesterday, so the rich get richer. That said, I think the Panthers have probably the best unit of any of the between the Falcons and the Panthers. Their defense, I think, is actually pretty damn good. Brian Burns is awesome. Derek Brown is great. They got a couple really good young cornerbacks, Jeremy Chin, Shaq Thompson. So I think that Panthers defense gets the nod. But what could be the deciding factor here is the difference between Arthur Smith and Mark Rule. And I think Rule is looking to be way in over his head at the NFL level. And Arthur Smith, I think, did a lot last year. It's just 1 year. We'll see how year 2 looks. But I think his team definitely overperformed their talent level when it comes to the wins and losses. So maybe you see the Falcons just simply due to coaching outperform the Panthers this year, with Rule likely on the way out. But we'll see. Neither of those teams are very good on paper. I think games can change that. That's why you play the games. You don't just look at them on paper and decide, okay, this team's better, they move on. We're not just filling out a bracket here for March Madness. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But right now, either third or fourth place in a not very good division, and probably picking top 10.
Yeah, and if you're picking top 10, you're picking top 5. I mean, if you're going to be, what was it, 4-13? It wasn't 4-13. It was you got that pick at it was the year before. It was 4-12. I'd rather, in picking 4, I'd rather you just go. It would have been so much better if you'd picked third and gotten that draft package from the who made that? Who 49ers. Made that pick? The
49ers, Dolphins.
The 49ers to the Dolphins.
Yep.
That would have been ideal. Instead, Palkovitz is a great player, but I certainly would have rather had 3 first-round draft picks, especially in that draft. 2 in that draft and then 1 this year. I would have rather had 3 picks for this team. For this team. And Michael Reed comes in. He says, fresh start. I'm loving every single move. Long overdue. Great franchise. Just been drowning in cap. Hopefully we found solutions. Excited to see the results. I had questioned, Michael, if the Falcons had the cojones to move on and eat the Matt Ryan contract this month. And they screwed that up a little bit with the Deshaun Watson. And there's a whole other topic right there. By the pursuit of Deshaun Watson and not getting him. And frankly, it may have been the best thing that could have happened. It was a PR blunder, but they needed, one of my fears of taking a quarterback higher in this draft was that it would prevent them from taking one next year. Or that they needed to do what they did, which was move on from Matt Ryan, get that money back, in cap space, and they did. And I'm looking forward to them being able to go out and shop with the big boys next year for sure. Joe Cannon comes in, has a question. He says, is our receiving core underrated? With London, Edwards, Tate, and Bird at wide receiver and Pitts at tight end, I think it's a really solid group for a quarterback like Mariota or Ritter. I think it's a solid group, but let's look what we're talking about here. We're looking at Kyle Pitts. I think he's legit. 1 year sample size, but I think we're okay there. We're looking at Drake London, unproven rookie. We're looking at Auden Tate, 799 yards career in 4 years. Demir Bird has 1,400 yards in 6 years. And Brian Edwards has, is 764, had almost 600 yards last year. So that would be your best productive. So you've got an unproven rookie, a really uber talented second-year guy in Pitts, and some cast-offs. Can you take that motley crew? And yes, I watched The Dirt again last night. Can you take that motley crew and turn them into something as a unit that they haven't been able to do in themselves as the individuals? Maybe.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why they're overlooked. There's talent there, but there's not track record and production despite several years in the NFL.
Yeah, we'll see how they play out. There's just a lot of question marks. I think you have a lot of good things going, and definitely an ascending group, especially with the duo of Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I mean, those guys are exceptionally young. Kyle Pitts can finally buy, a beer. It's couldn't last year. Drake London, super young as well. So you have a good thing going there. But Edwards, Tate, and Bird, they're not really. I like Tate actually coming out of Florida State, but he can't separate for anything. He's just kind of a glorified red zone kind of jump ball guy. Edwards has already been. This is a Edwards that was drafted by the Raiders and traded before the season even started, if I'm remembering correctly. Maybe I'm mixing up my Edwards there. So definitely a group that I'm not super impressed in. I think they need definitely a couple more options there still, and some speed. Also, there's not very much explosiveness in that group right now, but I think on paper, they're not overrated, but they're also dependent. And this is a pass blocking offensive line that's not very good, in my opinion, overall, and especially at right tackle and left guard. And also, the quarterback is not going to be the most aggressive to put them in situations where these guys can go out there and make plays very often. It's going to be, I think, a lot more conservative suffer ball on the Falcons side, protecting not only the quarterback's limitations, but also the offensive line. So I think you have a lot of the good things going and really good building blocks with London and Pitts, but this is not the year where the rocket ship is taking off.
Yeah, and again, have you done enough on the offensive line? No. Was it Jermaine Freedy at right tackle and Caleb McGarry? Okay. Does Jalen Mayfield take that big leap? Maybe. Maybe. He played more games last year than he did in college, and he wasn't a guard. So he was a young guy too. I think he was 21 years old too. So there's a chance, but there's a whole, when we start looking at other teams and we start talking about their questions, you start looking about like a position. Okay, I'm concerned about right tackle. Do we have a second wide receiver? There's so many of those questions with the Falcons that those things start to add up. And unfortunately, a lot of them are in key positions, or units like offensive line and defensive line. Key units. Travis Weber coming in saying, good morning, Scott and Nick and Albert. Big Al coming in on YouTube saying, good morning, my friend. Good morning, Big Al. Welcome here. Michael coming in from Arizona, up bright and early, coming in to see us. And then let me get to this question real quick. It says, Make You Fumble says, why do people want Deion gone so bad? I don't necessarily want him gone so bad. I like him playing at a level that helped him get that contract. So because he's on the books. Why do you want him bad? It's because he was underperforming and he's overpriced. Those are the two reasons. Either one of those two are reason enough. Now throw in the fact that there's credible reports from a longtime Atlanta journalist that he is a problem in the locker room, and you're talking strike threes. So strike 1 and 2, either one of those would be enough. If you're not a contract, you're safe as long as you are worth more than what you were being paid. He's not. He's incredibly overpaid based on the position, let alone for, even if he was one of the best in the league, he's still overpriced for a linebacker. The fact that he was one of the worst in the league, and it becomes a really big problem. But good question, MUF.
Yeah, and it's not about so much Dion being gone. It's that his contract plus age plus current trajectory all point to him not being a part of what's next for the Falcons. That next phase, that rebirth. I guess we can call them the Phoenixes because they're gonna have to be reborn. But it just doesn't seem likely. Dion's gonna be a part of that journey for this team. That is probably still 2-3 years away from really building up the roster to a point where you can be aggressive, whether that is landing a quarterback or trading for one. So Dion at that point will be 30 years old. His contract will be up. And also his style of linebacker, if you can run and tackle, there's going to be a spot for you in the NFL, but he's not the prototype and what teams are looking for. So all of that together comes down to maybe him not being a part of the equation. And if you can get yourself some value from him, whether that be extra cap space this year that you can roll over or a draft pick next year, that's another young cost-controlled contract that you can roll the dice on. That's something that you have to at least consider if you are Terry Fontenot and building this Falcons team.
Yeah, we've got about 15 minutes left before we're going to get out of here. Just as a we're at the 2/3 mark, second period. We're in the third period. We can use hockey references here. So for periods. Michael Reed comes in. He says Atlanta will shock the league this season. Anything above 500, I think, would be shocking. So that's what you're looking at. They go 9-8. They go 8-9. I'll be shocked. But if they go 9-8, I would consider that shocking. So that's your mark, Michael. That's where you're looking. If they hit 9, that would be shocking. Dave coming in says, "Good morning, guys." Good morning, Dave. Glad you can make it with us this morning. And Marlon's going to dip out. Have a great day. Well, good luck, and thanks for starting your day with us. And hope you have a great day. He says, "Fellas, have a great day. It's time for me to start my day." Well, I'm glad you're able to start it with us. Now, wanted to move on just a little bit here. Bleacher Report did a listing, as they're wont to do, of surprise rookies on every single team. And what was kind of fun about the Atlanta Falcons was there were so many candidates. Who are you going to choose for the Falcons? I could choose anybody except Drake London, because if he comes out and has less than 400 yards, then that would be a surprise in the bad way. But as far as a positive surprise, there's so many different ways you could go with this team. They went running back Tyler Algier from BYU, who I know you were a big fan of, as the guy who could be. They've got 2 veterans, Cordero Patterson, but you don't want him being the bell cow. You want him getting 5 to 8 touches out of the running back position, as a true running back. And that towards the latter half of the season, Tyler Algier could be the guy. I know you were a big fan of his coming out of BYU.
Yeah, Tyler Algier is a physical running back with the frame to be a bell cow back. I don't know if he has the balance or rubberiness, if you want to call it that like somebody like a Javonte Williams has in Denver, and some of the elite running backs. Sometimes I think I see a little bit more Royce Freeman to him, where that can be a little bit more plotting. I don't know if the explosiveness is there, but man, the dude can bounce off tackles. He's a big body, and in theory, given his size, it's kind of hard to say given the offense at BYU, but you think he can at least hold up at the point of attack against a free rusher as a pass blocker in the backfield. So I like Algier a lot. I think he can be a guy who can fit this offense pretty well because of his size. If a team wants to play lighter boxes against you, guess what? He perfectly fine taking on a safety in space or bouncing off a singular linebacker at the hole from time to time. So like Algier a lot. He's not going to be a home run threat, but he's going to be enough of a body blow kind of punch guy that I think he can fit this offense pretty well, and maybe even becomes a starter for this team before the year's end.
If he can help move piles and get positive push. Mike Davis got a lot of stick from Falcons fans, and he didn't have a good year, and he looked miserable. He came into camp and was so bright-eyed and happy, and by the end of the season, he just looked like a beaten man. It was kind of sad because he had such high expectations coming up to his hometown team. But Mike Davis isn't a guy who not many can, make a guy miss in the backfield or, break tackles 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage and move forward. I need to get some positive momentum going. If the offensive line can improve enough to at least keep the guys out of the offensive backfield at the snap, he can be a pile mover. He can move forward. If he's 3 yards in a cloud of rubber pellets and you're looking at 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2s, then that's a good thing. It's so frustrating watching the Falcons fail over and over and over. It's been maybe one of their biggest Achilles heels on offense the last 3-4 years is their inability to get a short yardage gain when they need one. And Nick, you've heard me say a zillion times, if you can't run it or stop the run when you have to, you cannot be a good football team. And this is not, they haven't been able to do either. They haven't been able to stop 3rd and shorts, and they haven't been able to get 3rd and shorts. And you're not going to win very many football games. So if he's a bruiser in the Royce Freeman mold who can move a pile, Ironhead Hayward was a really good running back here for the, and all the descriptions you use. I'm not going to say he's going to be Michael Turner, but all of the descriptions you use also would fit Michael Turner. Michael Turner was a beast for the Atlanta Falcons. Amazing. He was a spectacular running back for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be that, but if he can be a forward momentum guy, that's a positive in my book.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that one. It'll be interesting. Do you think, so talking about this topic of every team's, standout rookie, is there anybody else who deserves honorable mention from this Falcons team? Because to me, immediately, I'm thinking there's such an obvious pathway to playing for Arnold Ebiketie.
That's who I wanted you to talk about first. So you go ahead and go to Ebiketie, and I'll follow you.
I really like Ebiketie. He has a very unique body type where he's a little bit more squat, but he is very long. And dude, I mean, I know it's a cliche, but the dude really does play with his hair on fire. You don't see edge rushers make tackles across the opposite hash mark, chasing down the run very often. But there's multiple plays in Ebiketie's, I guess, what do you want to call it, profile, that he did that last year. He's a really good, tenacious pass rusher as well. And you're going to see a significant difference, I believe, moving on from Stephen Means to Arnold Ebiketie. Ebiketie, I also think, is a good enough athlete where he can drop into space from time to time. You're probably going to use that role more so with Lorenzo Carter, but the fact that he can do that helps you a lot with some of the blitzes that you probably are going to see from Coach Pease. So I really like Ebiketie. I think, again, it's going to be hard to not be a significant upgrade to the edge rushers the Falcons had last season, but he's a good one, and I think you got him at a good spot in the draft, and I'm excited to see what he can do this season.
And I absolutely adored the Troy Anderson pick. I thought he was one of the top inside linebackers in this draft. I liked him better than Chad Muma, who was getting talked about a lot, and he ended up going first. The Falcons were at the Senior Bowl. I was at the Senior Bowl. What I saw when I saw them side by side, same schemes, doing the same things, Anderson was considerably better. It was an easy pick for me. Then he goes to his pro day, and he comes in 6'3", 247 pounds, and ran in the 4.4s. Just goodness gracious. The guy has got football player written tattooed across his forehead. When you can play quarterback, running back, and linebacker and make all conference on both sides of the ball at the college level, I don't care if it was Montana State or if it was Alabama. If you can do that at the college level, you're a football player. So all of the things we just talked about with Deion Jones and another reason why he might be expendable, you've got an extra 20 pounds and rookie eagerness out of Troy Anderson. And, let's see, 10% of the cost, 10%, maybe even less than that. He might be on $1 million. So it might be 5% of the cost as a second round pick. So I was a huge pick at 58 overall, a huge fan of the Troy Anderson pick. And I think he's got a chance to play early and often.
Yeah, definitely possible. Will be interesting to see how it plays out for them this season, but hopefully he can be healthy. That's the other one there, right? Dealing with the shoulder injury and everything. But we have Joe Cannon coming in saying, has Stephen Means been picked up by anyone yet? Just curious. I do not think so, but I'm not sure. Scott would probably be more the authority on that one.
I haven't seen. I saw Fabian Moreau was the latest. He was one of my 3 most targeted players. Like, these 3 cannot be in the starting lineup next year. I don't care if it's me and Nick suiting up. These 3 cannot be in the starting lineup next year. Fabian Moreau is one of them. And I didn't watch him so much in coverage because I didn't have to, because teams were running all over the Falcons. They could get it. Just watching him, I'm not going to bag on somebody for not being good enough. I'll say, listen, they need an upgrade here. But when I see a sweep come in the direction and I see someone running for the sidelines, I will bag on you for attitude and effort and toughness. Those things. You're a professional football player. And his inability to get in somebody's way to help seal an edge on the corner was, it looks like we got spammers coming. We must have made it here. You made it when you get trolls and spammers. So let's see. Where was I? On Fabian Moreau's one. Stephen Means was the other guy. And I don't fault Stephen Means' effort and attitude. I think they were probably both really, really good. I think he was a great locker room guy and is a reason why he probably should be picked up. But again, he had 2 QB hits all season as a 14-game starter, and those came in the same game. No sacks and maybe 1 tackle for loss. That is almost statistically impossible. It really is. There should be a blown assignment on the offense somewhere in there where you at least luck your way into, a guy picks the wrong gap and you find yourself free for a tackle for loss. It's almost impossible. It's almost like getting a 0 on the SAT. They say that's just as hard as getting a perfect score. It's almost impossible to lack the production that Stephen Means had. So someone might pick him up because I have the feeling he's a really good locker room presence and he could be a practice squad guy. He could end up being a coach in this league at one day, but he needed to be upgraded significantly. And then the third one, those were my 2, but I had 3. I'm like, these 3 guys can't be starters. It wasn't Jalen May. It was probably Caleb McGarry at right tackle. Watching those guys was the other one. The defensive line, though, and the safety position definitely needed upgrades for sure. Yeah. And Clee says, do you still get free 400 points in the SAT for just putting your name on it? You get like a quarter point for leaving an answer blank. So you're not supposed to guess on the SAT. That's why if you can narrow it down to 50-50, then the math pays off that you're supposed to guess if you can narrow it down to 50-50 because it's all multiple choice. But in order to get a 0, you'd basically have to know all the answers and miss everything on purpose. So they say it's just as hard to get 0 as it is a perfect score. So getting 0 production from the edge is almost statistically impossible. So God bless Stephen Means. I wish him well. He wasn't good enough, and that's not his fault. He is who he is. That's the failure of the Atlanta Falcons for not being able to upgrade that position.
Yeah. Yep, it is. And hopefully it lands somewhere and has a better year than he did last year. Maybe having a little bit better interior defensive line talent or more secondary help will help him out. But last year was rough to watch, no doubt about that. So
one more topic I wanted to hit on before we get out of here. Jared Bernhardt, a lacrosse player. You know how I love my crossover sports. And I always say that this football is an athlete's game. It's not a skill game. That's an oversimplification. But you don't hear guys, picking up baseball after college and starting shortstop for the Minnesota Twins. It doesn't happen. You don't hear guys say, I washed out of football. I'm going to go out for the basketball team, and now I'm a starting point guard in the NBA. That doesn't happen. But Jared Bernhardt is in camp as a undrafted free agent, trying out as a wide receiver special teams guy, as a lacrosse player, one of the most decorated lacrosse players in history. And Nick, you knew a little bit about him because I believe he had a workout with the Denver Broncos as well.
Yeah, he did have a workout with the Denver Broncos, and it sounds like he's going to be mostly vying for punt returner spots. He's very quick twitch in that regard. I'm surprised he didn't end up on the Patriots, given Bill Belichick's fanaticism of picking up former lacrosse players, but probably somebody who can compete for that punt return spot. Punt return's a little bit more quick twitch shiftiness than your kick returner, who you need to be able to get downhill with a head of steam in a hurry.
Being a former soccer player, I could fly, but my 40 time wasn't very good. It wasn't. I didn't do anything from a stop. Everything was always on the move. So as a lacrosse player, I can some of the scouting reports I studied, I think Michael Rothstein had a nice article on him on ESPN. Some of the quotes on him said his lateral movement was just off the charts. And I could see that. I mean, it's basically like playing pickup, tackle the man or whatever you used to call it. Everything's always in motion. He's always in motion. So I could see him being a stalwart on special teams as a gunner, or something along those lines, where he's not going to test as well. Now, I wish he'd been a little bigger. He's listed at 6'1", 195. I was kind of hoping he'd be one of these 6'3", 220 lacrosse dudes.
Yeah.
But 6'1", 195, bring him in camp and put him on the practice squad. Let everybody else try and catch him, and see what he can do. Give him a year of experience in the game with that athleticism, because it's a tough damn sport, and you don't have the success he did without being a tremendous athlete, and especially, like I said, the side to side. Forget what he tests. He didn't train up to run a 40. You can go from 4.7 to 4.5 based on technique and through 6 weeks of training. But you can't fake that natural athleticism that he has.
Yeah. Nope, you're absolutely right. So let's get a few more comments in here before I know we got to get on out. I got to go pick up groceries. So we got Terry coming in here saying Atlanta definitely going to shock the league this year. I hope so, Terry. I know Terry came in a couple of shows a couple weeks ago saying we were way too low on them. I think it was when we were picking the unfortunate end results of the schedule of the Falcons. But hopefully you're right, Terry. But I keep telling you, man, if this team is bad this season, that doesn't mean it's going to be bad long term. Best case scenario in this year, in my opinion, from the Falcons is that you stink enough that you get yourself a top 3 pick and you end up picking a 15+ year option at the quarterback position in the draft, and you go from there.
Yeah, and there's going to be several of them. There's going to be a couple to choose from. So you want to be in the top 2 next year in the draft. Top 3 maybe, but top 2, and you're pretty well set. Terry, if you're just now coming in, we had a similar comment, and I put the over under on the shock value at 9. So if the Falcons win 9 games, I would consider that shocking. Surprising would be 6 to 8 wins. Would be surprising. I would consider that a surprise. My problem with this, and I've seen some folks. I saw one of the Falcons wire guys on US Today. He picked like 11-6. I'm like, I like Arthur Smith. I really do. I think he's proved to be a pretty good first-year coach. The Falcons turn around and go 3-14. I want people to realize this isn't on Arthur Smith this year. This roster is not good. There's $65 million not on the field in dead cap money in Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. And I don't mean they're worth 65, but their contracts were worth 65. Again, you're out there playing without $65 million that should be on this roster and isn't. You are handicapped. You've been kneecapped for 2022. 11 wins would be a freaking miracle. 9 wins would be a shock. 7 would be a surprise. Don't be surprised if it's 4. Give Arthur Smith a chance. That is my biggest concern. If anybody can take anything from anything I have to say, is don't put this year on Arthur Smith. Just don't. 3 years. I want to see 3 years minimum.
Yeah, 100%. He deserves that. And so does Fontenot as well. So hopefully they do shock the world this year. That'd be much more enjoyable. But I think long term, your best bet is to get yourself a legitimate quarterback, and it's bouncing off the floor.
Hey, if you're good enough to win 10 games with $140 million, guess what you can do with $240 million? You'll be just fine.
Wow.
I don't see it happen. I just don't see it happen. Does Ritter show enough not to pick a QB in next year's draft? I don't think he will. It's a 3rd round pick again. I saw something about Matt Corral, one of the the quarterback battle in Carolina. Was okay. You've got a battle there, but you're running Sam Darnold up against a guy that 32 teams had 3 chances each to pick and didn't. That he was passed over 90 times. That's your guy. Ritter's a little bit that way. And Terry coming in says Arthur did more with less last year, more talent this year. 1, I'm not sure there is more talent. 2, the schedule's harder. The schedule's harder this year. Last year's schedule was the easiest. That's why the Falcons got the first pick of the 3 or 4, 7 and 10 teams, because they had the easiest schedule. The schedule's tougher. The schedule's tougher this year. So those 7 one-score games, because they were 7-2 and one-score games. I think that's the first time I didn't say one run, Nick.
Yeah, you did it. Good job.
7-2 and one-score games. That could end up being, 3-6, 4-5, and now you're 4-13. Okay. Yeah. So the schedule's a lot tougher, and I'm not convinced you are better after losing your leading tackler, after losing your franchise quarterback. Those are 2. After losing your leading receiver.
Yep.
There's a lot of unknowns there. There's for sure.
Yeah, it's a game by game, big picture. I think that's going to be the big one this year for the Falcons, and looking for the small victories within the battle of the context of the games themselves. So we'll be here to walk you through that. And either way, you're going to want to join us along the season because we're going to have a lot to break down, even if the games don't always work out the way that many Falcons fans want.
Yep, Nick, we're going to get out of here, and we enjoy the building process. Nick and I enjoy the general manager aspect of this as much as anything. And when you're talking about $100 million at least in salary cap room and a high draft pick, this is going to be a fun team to try and talk about the different ways we can build it. But on that note, we are going to get out of here until next week on Forging. This was Forging the Falcons. We are live every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern. Any final thoughts before we get going?
No, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you guys today. I'm excited to see where this Falcons team can go. Obviously, the offseason we're coming to the slower part of the offseason, but we're still going to be bringing you content and shows. So keep joining us. And if you have anything you want us to talk about specifically or dive into, reach out to us. Find us on Twitter. And we're here for the content. And you guys are as much a part of that as we are. So we appreciate that. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, well said, my friend. Until next time, we will see you soon.